commodity, getting it is very difficult. It's not as if it doesn't exist. It's in the system, but paying for it has become a problem for many Ghanaians. And this has a lot of resultant factors, and we see that happening in our economy. On Face to Face today, I'm going to have a conversation with someone who was involved in the importation of petroleum products into the country and the sale of same. Maybe he can help us make sense of how we can arrest the rising cost of fuel. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu, and you're welcome to Face to Face. My guest on Face to Face is a founding CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, CBOD. Currently, he has left them after serving for many years and decided to run his own firm, Cleave and Tove, as a boss. Senyo Hosi, you're welcome.
Thank you, man.
Face to Face. How are you doing?
I'm well, my fellow anchorite.
Oh, yeah, I didn't add that. You're my senior. Senyo left my secondary school, 97, right?
Yes.
Wow, and I left 2006. That's many years apart, but it's good. Anchorite, and you've been doing a lot of job for our school, and we are happy.
Actually, 98.
98, okay. Please keep pushing our school for us. The only anchor in the whole of Tema.
I beg you.
Yeah. Let's talk about CBOD briefly. So you are the founding CEO. How did the concept come about? And what is CBOD for people who don't understand?
So CBOD stands for the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. It is the industry strategy representation, advocacy, and lobby entity for the bulk distribution companies and the bulk storage entities as well. They are very critical in the entire supply chain. So it's actually a platform for proper policy coordination, policy advocacy, and engagement also with government and shaping things to sustain the mandate that the subsector has. The main role of the members in there is to ensure product supply into this country. That's
so. What are CBDs? What
BDCs?
BDCs, sorry.
So bulk distribution companies are petroleum service providers who have a mandate to either import or bulk distribute refined products locally or from international refineries. So as opposed to what people think that bulk distributors are supposed to run a zero-sum game with local refineries, that's not the case.
Okay.
So their task is to make sure there's product supply in our country at all times.
So this is a private wing of supply of petroleum
It
production.
could be both private and public. The chamber today has, one of the major parastatals or quasi Go Energy owned by GOIL.
Okay.
It's a listed company, it has private owners, and it also has government as the majority stakeholder.
And it's part of your chamber.
Yeah, chamber also has GMPC as its member.
Okay.
So it's just the function. It hasn't got too much to do whether you're private or you're public. We, as a sector, had a responsibility to make sure there's product supply in this country, and it would mean either buying from international refineries or buying off bulk from local refineries. Wherever you find it, our task is to make sure that products are here.
How many BDCs do we have in Ghana?
I think today if I may check, maybe about 45.
45?
Which is, in all honesty,
is it too high or too low?
It's ridiculous.
Too high?
It's extremely high.
Because
it's
of our
not very
population?
sustained. Yeah, the population itself, the volumes that we run. So you're actually going to get many village champions. And you realize out of this 45, those who are actively driving value in the sector are really bringing in products. Maybe just between 10 and 17, depending on which time you're looking at. So
all these 45, are they in your chamber or there are some who are outside?
I think largely everyone
all
is
of them
there.
are.
Largely. I'm sure probably you have a few new people who may be going through the process and all that.
So what is the structure like? So if you are a BDC, typically you...
Or you're a depot.
Okay, explain the difference.
So
BDC
the
owns
storage
a depot.
companies, not necessarily. A BDC could own one or not. So the storage companies are those huge tanks you see. So Bust, for example,
What
is
you
a
call the
storage
tank
company.
farms?
The tank farms. So the tank farm companies are also members.
Okay.
And we also have other allied service providers being members, like inspection companies who also have a certain mandate within the chain, also being part of it.
So you import crude or you import finished products?
We either import crude or we import finished products. Either of them would aim at one thing, making sure there's product supply on our market.
And then so if you bring crude, that means you are taking it to Tema Oil Refinery?
Or possibly taking it to the other refineries in the market.
Not in Ghana?
In Ghana.
Oh, we have other refineries?
Yeah, but small refineries. Sometimes you call them, they have small refineries. I don't use the industry joke around these.
But they can process it for you.
Yeah,
and then
they can process it for you.
Oh, I see.
But TOR definitely is the major. But the other refineries, Ghana Gas is a refinery too.
Okay.
It's a gas refinery.
What do we also buy? Not we. Do you people, or when you were with them, did they buy from our oil fields?
Oh, TOR?
No, the BDCs we have in Ghana. Do they buy from the crude that we?
Partly yes and no. There's a few transactions that happened, and if you look at the trace, you trail the entire transaction. Some of the products may have come from our markets here, and some of the BDCs were involved. But with crude and our local production, because of the structure of the upstream sector, the commitments government has made is a pure commercial thing as to whether the Jubilee partners or the other partners would really find a viable counterparty locally or internationally. Crude is a global commodity, and it's not sold necessarily by location. If you can actually get people to pay for the price as you get elsewhere, you just move.
But why would you go and buy crude from Saudi Arabia when you can get it at Takrady?
So to just be a matter of cost. There are no sentiments around petroleum trades.
It's not a patriotic thing.
It's not a patriotic thing. It's
so not
commercial. It's not a commercial thing. I don't think that when you go to the pump station, you want to know which petrol is bought in Ghana and which petrol is made out of Ghana. You are looking for petrol. You are looking for diesel. And if Ghana petrol is costing maybe 10% higher,
you avoid it.
You avoid it. You see, that's the reality.
Even if you are the government,
even America,
even if you are the president,
you avoid it. You'll find ways. That's why I think I had a conversation with you sometime on your show. I said there's no government that can control petroleum prices. They can control their taxes in the price builder. But what prices? Ghana is just a drop in the ocean. You're not a maker. You are just a taker. Even the U.S. Look how Biden was really struggling to help drive prices down. The only way to do that is to make sure you improve the supply-demand balance, all right, and minimize speculation. And these are the main drivers of oil in this country, in the world.
I understand, but my concern would be that, okay, if we want to grow our industry and we also have our own crude that we dig in our own earth or in our own soil here in Ghana, and we have BDCs that are Ghanaians, should we not have a working relationship so that we could say that, okay, instead of you going to bring it from Ukraine, get it from here for this percentage, and that would be so that you also get to benefit. That way we have...
If BDCs had a refinery that was very efficient, productive, BDCs will always prefer to buy from our local refinery than import finished products. We don't do too much of the crude trade, because we don't have a very competent refinery in our country. TOR is not a very potent refinery.
What is the problem with TOR?
The first fundamental problem with TOR is government's involvement, the involvement of government and politics in the operation of it.
It's a government property.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Government should not be in the business of doing business, because government has failed at doing business, and the evidence is so much. We have spent more money wasted subsidizing TOR, trying to clean up TOR. That's almost enough to build a very big refinery, a new big refinery, if you look at the data. All right, if you follow it step by step and dollarize it at time value of money, you're at the billions of dollars that have been just thrown at TOR, and we still don't have anything to show for.
So government should have just built TOR and transferred it.
No, as you see, look at the history of TOR. TOR built in 1961 was GAIP.
Yes.
It was owned by Ajib, like ENI today, yeah? It was a very functional refinery. No problems. And even then, they were doing tolling. They were tolling. I mean, Shell, British Petroleum will bring crude.
Okay.
They process and they take the output and go. So it's just a factory. All right? It's just a factory. You bring your raw material, we process it for you. You take your goods, you go. He never meddled in the commerce of it. And it worked well. It went on till government decided to take a part of it. And then later, in the late 70s, government then said, hey, we're taking over this thing fully and running it. Then government started bringing in its agencies to start importing the products. When it started doing that, every agency that really meddled with TOR almost went down. Ghana Supply Commission, GMPA, I think at a point, then GMPC actually. GMPC nearly collapsed because of TOR. And when GCB was funding its TOR's activity, GCB, the bank, they also nearly collapsed.
So you mean
they were on life support?
So TOR became a problem.
It's always been a problem child since government decided to run and own it.
And government still runs and owns it.
Yes, and it makes no sense.
But GOIL is a government institution.
Yes.
GOIL is doing very well. GOIL is importing and doing all of that work. Can't TOR do the same, import crude, process it, and go to take crude from the 10 fields and kind of process?
There are few control mechanisms with GOIL. It's a listed company.
Okay.
It doesn't just answer to government.
Okay.
But even then, you look at GOIL today and look at the share price and how things and the books. You look deep into the books of GOIL, you will be concerned. You should be concerned. You understand? There's been a great change that has happened. Especially when you had what's his name, Mr. Colley take over. Mm-hmm. I mean, a real die in the wool GOIL man, who rose through the ranks. Yeah, there's a lot of change, and they were allowed to operate. Okay. But politics is really taking a lot more influence over most of our state-owned enterprises and all that, or related affiliates, and it's not helping GOIL.
So no. If you were to advise government on TOR, what would you say?
I've done my papers on that. I've written. I have been privileged to have served as a member of the Ministry's Advisory Board, mm-hmm. under both opposing governments, under the NDC and also under the MPP. I've been quite categorical and consistent about it. TOR has to be privatized. It has to be done in a structured way. We still government have a little hold in there, but not a controlling or defining hold. So
it should be minority.
It should be a minority because one, the asset is there. Take out the debt, value the fiscal assets, and then put that as the state's equity. All the key players, whether it's BDCs, the international traders who understand the trading and commerce side of it,
join.
They should come and join. The people bring in capital because we need to. This refinery is too old. Mm. We have to revamp it.
I was there recently and I noticed a private Chinese man doing a private processing the Senyo oil. I don't know if you're aware.
Senyo is going to be a game changer.
And it's just a few meters away.
So you didn't go to TOR. Just so
I drove past TOR to
Senyo is a separate refinery owned by a private person. And just watch how it's going to run. You realize that Senyo, which is actually now deploying fresh income, fresh investments, is likely going to operate more efficiently. TOR has staff of about 1,000 or more for a 45,000 barrel per day refinery. That's operating at maybe 25,000 barrels. I mean, when it is recently active, and you have 1,000 people, you don't even need more than 50 people or 100 max people to really do that. So you realize the weight or burden you are putting on the entity. When politicians appoint politicians in there or political appointees in there, the considerations are not commerce. Refining is a business. It's economics. It is not political economics. All right? People go there with different incentives. And that incentive is at variance with the sustainability of the entity.
So if you have a proper working refinery like Senyo is promising to, you foresee a lot of the BDCs shifting to that place.
There's no reason why they should. Why should we be paying dollars when we can be paying cedis?
So you pay dollars to TOR?
I mean, you can pay cedis to TOR. I mean, subject your prices are in dollars, but you can actually have that done in cedis. And it actually creates a more central and coordinated mechanism to even deal with the FX supply.
You think privatizing TOR is a solution? Why is government not agreeing?
There's a lot of incentive for every government to keep TOR. One, you have 1,000 workers who you are worried about.
Party boys
that you have in there. Two, people, look, for most of our state institutions that go down or are struggling so bad, there are people who are really making a lot of money.
So someone benefits.
So people benefit from this nonsense. So,
but it has worked well at STC. STC is a state company. It's working well. Why wouldn't it work with Tor? Can't we rather have a proper managing director running it?
Akomia is a great friend, and I think his efforts in turning around the place. But look at it. You see, he's deployed a lot more private capital in the activities of STC. All right. So there's a certain private sector influence in the deployment of investments and all that in there.
Okay.
So it's not. Yes, it's owned by government, but the operations in there
it's private.
It's significantly private sector oriented. And Akomia is a very fine leader. You can't guarantee political leadership in that form. Sustainable interest, no.
So because you when people politician.
Look, when you have an institution where people create losses, but they don't pay for it, they themselves don't lose anything at all. My guy, you are going to be setting the state up for chaos, and that's what we see. Top makes losses. Managers go in there and they make wealth. You understand? And then when they are gone, who pays for it?
You and I.
So it's not. It's that's the orientation we have when we deal with government things in this country.
Chop and go.
You know, I tell people my orientation is totally shifted. We have to admit who we are. I don't think that we are naturally very patriotic people.
Okay.
We are very self-centered generally as a collective. So our economic policies must rather trigger that to transform the society. That you have this level of selfishness. So if that is it, we have to do things that will make you own your own responsibility, your own accountability, and that will rather help the country grow. Is that a bad thing?
Let me move from Tor to BOST, another state institution, bulk oil storage and transportation company. You are like direct competitors with BOST, aren't you? BDCs, I mean.
BDCs are not one. BDCs are not a single entity. BOST was set up to provide strategic storage and infrastructure.
Security.
For the country. That will promote supply security. Our task is to bring in supply. The only challenge you've had over time is that the roles have become blurred, and government seems to be wanting to compete with its own construct of private sector operatives or construct of petroleum service providers. You are subsidizing BOST. How do you subsidize somebody to compete against another person fairly in a market? It doesn't make sense. But now, BOST is a very important feature of our entire downstream structure. BOST can be the driver of Ghana's downstream growth by providing the central infrastructure that makes our growth sustainable. Because you can't have everybody, for example, putting pipelines from here all the way to Kumasi. You can't. You need somebody.
So BOST will do that for us.
BOST should be able to do that. So you can't have everybody owning vessels that will just move in. BOST should be able to do that. You understand?
That you can tap into it.
So you tap into it. So government provides the backbone and the trigger. So you create it, a base. Private sector grows on the back of the base. Government makes money. Private sector is growing. The sector entirely grows. But when government tries to compete with private sector, you actually end up crashing the industry. So what has happened today and the issues with BOST? BOST provides storage. Private sector players also provide storage, which is fair. So if you want to be a storage company, compete. It's okay.
Okay.
Now, you don't subsidize the storage of BOST through the BOST margin, giving them free money of 400 million or 300 million, something of that sort a year. You don't give the private sector people that. But you say we should all compete and we're all selling at the same price. Then at the end of the day, you come and say you have made profits, which is less than the free money that you got. Did you really make profit?
but you can't also expect BOST to just fold their arms and relax and say, oh, for us, all we'll do is that we'll import the product and keep it in our
They are not just, no, that's not it. The strategic stock arrangement that existed before this 3-month story existed before the whole BDC construct. So government then was only hedging its risk against Tor because Tor would just go on strike. And And when they go on strike, there's shortage.
So boss has to be there to reserve.
So we definitely needed a boss. And this was one of the great things by Kwame Atu Ahoy, and then Tarzan. You know, these are people who we must celebrate in this sector anyway.
So BDCs have come
hold on. So they brought that up to hedge against Tor. So if Tor goes on strike, you have a few months of supply that you can rely on while you negotiate with Tor workers and all that. Now we dealt with that risk by trying to create
tank farms.
Be a private sector operators in. So if Tor goes on strike, products still come in. There's no shortage. So you really need to redefine the function of this body, this particular body.
Okay, so
which was boss.
In 30 seconds, what should boss do then? So boss definitely has to compete. The boss cannot sit there and still remain a strategic reserve.
Like I said, there's no strategic reserve. There's been no strategic stock in this country. They've provided nothing. None.
Are you serious?
I'm being honest with you. I sit both ways. There's no strategic stock. The strategic stock in this country is funded and provided for by BDCs. Nobody else.
So boss is...
They should tell you how much volumes they have brought and they've stored or kept. They are trading.
Please wait. This is Face to Face on Citi TV. My name
and
is
it's not a crime.
Please wait. I'm going on a break. Citi TV here. Face to Face is the show you're watching. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu. Here with Senyo Hosi. He's no more with BDCs, but he founded the chamber as a CEO. And we're discussing generally the downstream and the upstream. Now we're talking about BOSS, a strategic state institution, which he says is really confused in the mix of things. We'll come back. I'll ask him more on that. Plus, why are we paying so much for fuel? Is it that they've collaborated and decided to charge us so much, or is it actually a global problem? Please stay. You're welcome back to Face on Citi TV. My guest is Senyo Hosi. We are discussing the petroleum sector. So your solution for Tor is privatize it. What would be the solution for BOSS?
I think BOSS at some point may equally need to have a part of that happen. Because there's so much money honestly being wasted there. Too much. If you are deploying so much money or still making so much losses every year, what's the point? You go to BOSS, it's overstaffed. The CEO cannot say otherwise. Honestly, unless he wants to speak politics, it's overstaffed. You have an institution that has NDC employees, MPP employees. What kind of institution is that?
And they have union.
They have caucuses where they have meetings.
So you have to be careful.
And everybody, every day they come, you keep packing. So you imagine, we are just loading it with so much waste. But it's a country that is in a crisis time, critical. So what exactly is it? Now, the services BOSS provides. One is providing infrastructure. Every part of its infrastructure, it charges commercial rates for it. So why are you giving it free money? You've already positioned it to be a monopoly because it's providing central backbone. So that monopolistic feature alone should make it benefits. Why do you give it more money? I think we should keep a BOSS. I think we should definitely have a BOSS. We should have a BOSS that competes fairly on the market.
Runs on its own.
Run on its own steam.
So you shouldn't give it money.
No.
Stop feeding.
No, not at all. And then set clear KPIs for its management and fire them if they misbehave.
Is it okay? So we can
thankfully, BOSS has a good CEO. I mean, his managerial competence is not in question. His policy orientation is not, but he will definitely be constrained both by his own politics and the system. So. I mean, so I love Edwin any day. Edwin is fit for any of my business boards, any of my business managerial roles any day. You know, that's the confidence I have in Edwin. But the structure of that system is defective.
So can't you have an Edwin go and turn that system around?
Nobody can turn that thing around. There are structural issues that will have to be fixed. If you want to be competitive, you must be allowed to be competitive. You're not being competitive. You understand? You're not being competitive. It's like every time you said we should go boxing. Two things, you can just be a referee. You can be a trainer of all boxers and everybody pays you. But now you want to be a trainer of all boxers. You want to be a referee. Now you want to be also a boxer. Now if you want to be a boxer too, it's okay. You come into the ring, then what you do is that your gloves, then you put spikes.
For you,
there.
Government is giving
you spikes, and then you say I have a fair game, and even with all these spikes, you are still losing.
Can't we have a managing director who is government appointed, but who is very strong, who can run these institutions and turn things around?
I don't believe in any of that, because you only have transient solutions. You know, they fizzle out. Let's assume you're a very good guy. You're a very good guy. You got to come for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
You come and do your turnaround in 4 years. Then the next guy comes, another political appointee. What happens? And he decides to come and reverse almost all the gains that's made. What have we achieved?
So fix the structure.
So fix the structure and not a person. When you fix the structure will give you a right person. So that is what we need to fix for practically all our state-owned enterprises. You understand? Because it's not working well. The guy comes into office. Think about it. He's destined to be fired when his party loses. True or false?
Yes, so you can see it.
And when he's fired, you think again about it. What job is he going to do?
So he has to have an end.
If he starts a business in this ecosystem where people tag you as a party person of A or B, who wants to do business with you? Who even wants to put you on his board? Who will be confident enough to make you his MD? It takes a lot, or you have to be in a very strong institution. Very few people have done that, like Charles Darko, you know, from Gridco, he went to Tor. And he was not really a frontline politician, so it was easy. But for those who show their face in the politics, I mean, and Edwin is one.
Yeah.
You understand? You show your face, you go for party events and all that. Great as you may be,
you are still a politician.
You see, you'll be tagged there. So what happens? You look at the risk related to it. At some point, your interest will now become your own personal survivor post your potential office. You know, and the incentive and orientation that can cause you to do different things. So fix a structure so that the good people can be great. Okay. You understand? And weak people will not be bad. Their worst will just be good. So or they will not even be able to be in a space at all.
Build strong institutions, not strong persons.
Yeah.
So we've discussed Tor, we've discussed BOST. Another institution in the scheme of things is the National Petroleum Authority.
Yes.
What's your assessment of that authority? Working well? Doing their
job? I mean, Hamid is doing a great job.
The authority itself first, we can discuss most of it.
But again, I think that the general politics thing, it's actually affecting the institution.
So have a CEO who is not political.
Look, you have to change the structure. For me, for starters, I'll change the constitution, how the construct of the board is formed. Have a lot more institutional representation and very little political representation.
Even though he's a politician who takes the fall if that company collapses.
Nobody needs to take a fall. Because once we know where responsibility is, the institutions represented there and managing the place. Ministries run policy. These people manage the regulation and the space at every point in time. When you have a CEO who is there, whose tenure is safe, focused, protected, fully professional, if you have an NDC, BDC, NDC, OMC in quote, and it's an MPP man, you'll be worried. You won't be worried because MPP government can be there. But I know the regulator there, it is a very fair and balanced environment. Nobody's coming after you.
Okay.
And you know that if you're an MPP man and you're going to misbehave, the team will catch you because it doesn't matter who is involved.
Okay.
But you have a construct where too many calls come from different places, vessels are arrested, people politicians start all kinds of machinations to force MPA CEOs and MPA executives to move, to release criminals. You know, release the vessel, release the. Oh, it happens. It happens. You know, all these things happen. And then when they find the professionals in the regulatory bodies who are trying to enforce and do things right, the next thing is that they are trying to influence to actually move those good people out of their offices. You know, you can only do that because you have the hand of politics too much in it. And look, this just is a story of Ghana everywhere.
Let me conclude in the sector with GNPC, another giant too. They are also competing and doing a lot of other things. What's your assessment of GNPC?
GNPC, I think it's a very sensitive, very critical entity. It's the future and our actual hope as far as our upstream business
is it necessary now, GNPC?
GNPC is necessary.
Even though
the only thing is that of course, we have private companies and all that opened up, but I think we need to, especially GOSCO, I mean, it's what we should really be looking at. are driving. So we can actually have, or explore coal, to really have a lot more presence within the exploration space. And also the services space, very strongly. But you see, the politics is too much again. So the giant GNPC today is not the GNPC of yesterday.
It's diminishing.
It is massively. It is financially stressed.
And it's involving
it is financially stressed because it has also become,
political cash cow.
Yes, and it's every government.
They use it.
Look, every time you have things happen in this country with politics, I see it getting worse with every change in government. I don't see the next getting better.
that sounds a bit depressing. This is Face to Face on Citi TV. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu, here with Senyo Hosi. He was one CBOD boss. Why do we dig petrol in our own land and yet we pay so much for petrol?
The price of petrol is not determined by which location. It depends on the specification of the petroleum product and then the global demand for it. If your own people are not ready to buy it for 10, there are people who are ready to buy it for 10.5. Do you understand? So if someone wants to pay for 10.5, they'll send it there. So you must always be ready to pay the price of the commodity, irrespective of whether you produce it here or not.
What we produce, we can't process here and use it locally.
We can.
Would that be enough for us?
We can. And yes, it will be largely enough for us.
But the chain is broken.
Our demand is under 90,000 barrels a day, and we are producing in the hundreds.
So we should carry everything to
a little over 100.
And just process it and...
You can't, if you carry it to Tema, and Tema people don't pay you, how will you keep carrying to Tema? EcoBank funded Tor, and they all nearly got bent.
I don't like how you are painting Tor as a...
No, because it's a real problem. GCB went there, they nearly got bent. In fact, they were totally scorched. I think it was just left with the burial service, and then Jesus came somehow
and
then saved them. Look.
It is that problematic.
It is a problem. So the only reason why Tor has been running, a few times you've heard it run, is because you had a BDC go in there and say, I'll bring in crude. Your job is just to refine. Now the refining process, I would co-manage it with you. So nothing goes anywhere. And real controls in place. That's how come Tor was operational. Thankfully, government has seen wisdom in it, and a similar conversation is now going alongside my recommendations. So, look, this is business. It is just pure business. You won't be selling to somebody who will not be paying you.
Okay. The cost of petrol...
Will you run adverts on Citi TV for me if I don't pay you?
No.
I'll start after the first one. Thank you.
Why?
And in the case of too many first ones, let's carry on.
The government is blaming a lot of things with the current economy on Russia, Putin in Ukraine. The issue of the price of petrol and diesel. Why is it that some war happening far away in Eastern Europe is a problem for us here in West Africa? And do you agree that blame...
Nobody should blame fuel for our crisis. Fuel has an implication on
ripple
inflation.
effect.
No two ways about that. Different things can cause a spike in commodity prices. So, like I've always told governments, you can't control the price of fuel, but you can control the impact it may have on your people. So you have a long-term outlook. One, to the question, why is something happening there? As a matter of fact, the other question you should ask, why did we have petrol prices just crash so much in 2020?
March 2022.
2020, prices crashed.
Yes, okay.
And frankly, products were almost being given out technically for free.
They were begging.
They were even paying people to take it.
Yeah.
Because the loss was lower when you take it than when they keep it. You understand? So, why did it happen? Because there were things happening in the global environment that impacted demand. So supply outstripped demand. So prices will crash. And that was the COVID era.
No movement.
COVID has been the only thing that has been controlling petroleum prices for a long time now. When there's a little spike in Shanghai, the prices start coming down. Now we are here in recession. So global recession, so prices are beginning to look threatening to come southwards. It's a global commodity. The demand for it is global. It is not fufu. That the people who eat fufu are just a few, or just a very small people in Kumasi or something like that. This one is a global product. Everybody needs it. If your own country people won't buy it, others will take it. So you have to compete at that level. When we had the Ukraine crisis happen, a lot of sanctions were on Russia. Russia produces 11 million barrels a day of crude oil.
For the world.
For the world. They are one of the major suppliers. Shifts in their patterns will negatively affect prices. Prices will go up. The other problem you also have is that prior to even the Ukraine war, we started making too much noise about climate change, the need to abandon fossil fuels, let's go and use green and all that, blah, blah, blah. The people who are producing oil, when people started discussing ban of fossil fuels by 2030, 2035, which year are we in? This is a little over 10 years away.
So people are thinking that, okay, petrol and the petroleum products is going to be history soon.
So if you have those products and you realize that supply is tightening up, or demand is there, would you tighten your supply to make sure you actually collect more of your money today before you die? It's a survival mechanism.
Make the best
so OPEC kept meeting and nobody wanted to increase supply, because if they increase supply, prices will come down. And the day that greens out, nobody will think about them.
That's true. So they will make the best out of it now.
They are just acting as rational as any of us will do. So this thing was already destined to be going this way. Then Russia brought itself, and then speculators have leveraged that to also push it even further. But occasionally you have some COVID shocks, then things come down. Recession shocks, things will come down. Those are the issues.
So it means that it's fair then when government says don't blame us for the cost of petrol.
The price of petrol, you can't.
By the time it reaches Tema,
the dollar price of petrol is not the workings of government, but the Citi price of petrol, government definitely has a hand in there. One, government adds Citi taxes. Government's macroeconomic management has influences on our exchange rate. The exchange rate today versus when you started, even if you are buying the same dollar price, you can imagine how higher prices are today. More than 50% alone. That one government has to take the fall for it. So the taxes government puts it is government's discretionary decision, which governments currently under our economic situation has no other option than to keep.
Then it means you cannot be controlled. The price, you can't do anything about it.
Governments can reduce taxes, but reducing taxes is a crisis. That will be a disaster. So that option is out.
So control the CD and the dollar.
Control the CD, the dollar. That's what we should be doing. But that has become a national problem. It's not just a petroleum problem. So, and those decisions to do that are things that are within government sphere. So I repeat, the dollar price of the product can never be influenced by our country, but the CD price can be.
So what is your advice? And for the man who is buying petrol and is crying, we just have to keep crying. We can't do anything.
I don't think that's a matter of just crying. It's about us being practical.
Because right now, government cannot lift
what government should have done. And I said this in 2013, 2014, practically almost every year. I keep saying it. When we're going to deregulate, I said, look, government, let's invest in mass transportation. Because taking off subsidies was going to create a lot more fiscal space for you. If you use that space and invest rather in mass transportation, when prices skyrocket, you actually have a cushioning mechanism.
People can park their cars, sit in a train. Currently, the train in Accra.
My guy.
Then the Ayalolo bus system.
Charlie.
You want to cry?
We are so myopic in our policy, economic policy making and management. It is very heartbreaking. Because the things that are supposed to get us out of where we are very evident. But the discipline amidst the political economy, I don't think we've just not found ourselves.
So the practicality of what
of committed policymakers and leadership to really transform this economy. We know everything and do nothing.
The practicality of what you're saying is that if we had a working rail system, a working bus system, now that the cost of petrol is high, you can park your car and join the train from Pram Pram to Accra. If you decide to drive, that's your own.
You cry your own cry.
And it happens elsewhere
where
the government will give all the interventions.
Umaru,
you decide to drive.
Under my circumstances, I prefer to drive the smaller car at home. All right. When I drive my Nissan Patrol, the first thing I do is press the echo button. When I'm going small, me tea free. Sorry. I go
small for heels.
I just tea free. I just take my leg off and then make sure because I have to manage myself. If I had options, I'll be happy to move commercially. All of us, when we go to London, all these are big men. When we go to London, we stay in the tube. Even the Prime Minister uses the tube. Winston Churchill, in the height of the Second World War, he used the tube.
Reading newspapers.
Man! And we behave in this country as if we don't travel. Meanwhile, we spend money paying people travel allowances.
This is Face to Face on Citi TV. I'm speaking to Senyo Hosi. Now that he has gone on this tangent, he's someone who also is involved in a lot of national issues. So, aside doing petrol, Senyo was involved in a number of movements. So, there's one Ghana movement where he's been pushing an agenda. He's helped build a hospital for us in the midst of crisis during COVID-19. We'll come back, we'll talk about that. Plus, been delivering some lectures and talking about corruption, and people even suspect that he has, coupist mentalities. Please stay with us. You're welcome back to Face on Citi TV. I am Umaru Sanda Amadu here with Senyo Hosi, who is now the boss of Cleve and Tove. Where's the idea coming from, by the way? You were doing oil, then you just shifted, and you decided Cleve and Tove.
Cleve and Tove is a group company for a number of business enterprises. I own together with a couple of friends. We have Tessa Capital, which is a fund management company, one of the top 10 fund management and pension funds management companies. We also have AGL Limited, which is a agribusiness rice producing company in Adaklu. We produce Gogo rice and Momi rice. This year will be our biggest year. We've had quite some good support from EcoBank and Gesal as well, who've supported us this year. Then we also have a technology business called Tove Tech. We are technology distributors for banking softwares like T24 terminals, and we also develop stuff on our own with a network of developers both in Europe and in India. We also have a fintech company which we are working with to develop some trading hub for the banking sector. We're still work in progress, and that's what as other things relative to.
So you are not doing anything oil related?
The only bit we have a company called H-Fields, which we are still in the process of developing. That's supposed to provide advisory and assurance services both to the sector and then government, but not into the trading business. No, not at all. What we're trying to help funders of the sector do is manage their risk. We're also helping come up with solutions to help government optimize their revenue. There are a lot of leakages, but that's also dependent on government and the kind of support they may want from us. So we also provide advisory services relative to the sector. There's too much wealth of capacity in that sector here, so that is also available. Then we also develop in the insurance brokerage business. So you can actually buy your car insurance from your phone.
Okay.
And go to a market and then see which one is the best, who's offering you what, rate them and all that. Trying to find a way to consumerize insurance and promote.
So this gives you a lot of free time now to fire the government like you've been doing
Not
recently.
at all.
You've been firing the government.
Not at all. I've not. I've been very quiet.
What problem do you have with the government of Ghana? And I'm not saying the MPP government, but the state Ghana's leadership.
Yeah, one, I don't have more time. I have less time than I did.
When you were at CBOD?
Well, at CBOD, because the nuances of CBOD very, very much at hand, and with this, a lot of New businesses you have to develop, and building different teams across different companies is very, very demanding, and you have to keep your eye on the ball. I have less sleep than I used to. Now, my issue with government, I have issue with our governance frame. I don't have issue with any particular government. Of course, I have issues with every government anyway, like every Ghanaian, but my main issue really has to do with the governance frame. I don't think we have a governance system that would optimize the aspirations of us as Ghanaians. Our current structure, where we have a winner-takes-all system, it's not sustainable. I have proposed a new form of democracy, which I call a Ghanacracy, and I call it a loser-win-some, all right, kind of democracy that has an inclusive governance than an adversary politicking environment. So we are a developing country. All hands on deck. We are a developing country. Coming at each other and largely praying for each other to just crash doesn't help anybody. The CD's recent fall is not benefiting those who are in the NDC, neither is it benefiting those who are in MPP. The CD hasn't got a party color. All right. I remember Mr. Otabu saying that the CD could get to 10 at some point when during the crash. 24. We are there. You understand? So the prophecy has come. As to whether he was happy the prophecy has happened or not, it will affect him as well. So the country must thrive. As a businessman, I want to succeed, whether it's NDC or it's MPP. I don't think you want the fortunes of your children to dwindle because it's an opposition government that's in place. So I don't think that our kind of governance really works. What it does, it promotes a lot of corruption, and for a developing country with very small purse, it actually eliminates your ability to stimulate sustainable economic development.
If you put both
socio-economic development.
If you put both parties at the dining table, it means that they'll just eat and leave us.
Not at all. I don't think we should have both parties necessarily there. We should have an institution-driven democracy, one that has a lot more of our professionals in the helm of our affairs, and also having the politicians also partly part of it. They should do the politics, that's fine. But the institutions that sustain our economy must be driven a lot more by our professional institutions. All right. So you were talking about the MPA. I was talking about institutional representation. I think we should actually have more of that. If you have the bankers, then because the funding thing, you have the Ghana Bar Association represented in there. If you want to have the GJ, what the name represented in there, that's fine. Because you somewhat may be representing the people in a certain form. You have industry operatives in there. And there's a policy framework and clear outlook. You can have the minority and the majority also represented in there, but in the minority. So if you have a board of 9, and the politicians that are appointed there are 3, 2 from the ruling government, 1 from the opposition, the rest are professionals. As a board collectively,
they can run the show.
The politicians can't come and mess up. They actually appoint a board, a CEO by the board. Open, everybody should apply. I think that we're going to have more professionalism and sustainable operations than what we have. And then as with this, every government changes, then all the SOEs, boom, all kinds of good people just get out. When you create that orientation, everybody knows that I can be here maximum for 4 years, or till the president just gets pissed that he wants me to do a certain dirty deal, and I said I wouldn't do it. That means I also get dirty myself. So we are going to have problems. Look at what we are talking about. The economy is in a crisis, but what do you see happening in Accra? A lot of buildings are coming up. You understand? All kinds of apartments, and they are being paid for. Very few occupancy. What do you think is happening? It's corruption-funded venture. And then you realize that this money could actually go into proper social development that builds sustainable growth for us as a country. But it won't stop. Our democracy, as we see it today, we must understand that corruption is the currency that makes it will go.
You are part of the people who think that the constitution needs to be reworked.
Oh, the constitution absolutely needs to be reworked. That's not a matter of debate. There are purists who argue that the constitution is not the problem, and I agree. Ahmed Akbar says that if you have a good constitution and you have bad people, you have a bad outcome. If you have bad constitution and you have good people, all right, you can have a good outcome. That's not in doubt. Okay. As we speak, both of them don't help. We have bad, and we are getting bad. Bigger bad. What we need to do right now is to at least find a way to diffuse the power and not have it so concentrated in one man called the president.
Okay.
And we have created a democratic dictator. If we rather diffuse that power, nobody can. He said, there's a lot more check. There's a lot more control.
Powerful. Make the regional ministers.
They should be elected. The Auditor General should be totally independent. He shouldn't be appointed by a president. All right, he should be appointed by a certain professional body, accountable and approved by 2/3 of our parliament. So everybody you send there will have an obligation to the state, and not necessarily to a particular person.
Where do you get your energy and ideas from? I was sitting my son where you called me, you said I should come to go build a hospital during COVID-19.
Yeah, you did a great job, man.
Let's go and feed people during COVID-19.
Yeah, you did a great job. You were scared though at the beginning, but you were fine.
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
You know? And you did a great job there. I mean, putting up that COVID-19 infectious disease center at the Ghanese hospital, private sector led with the support of the Ghana Armed Forces, and you coordinated it perfectly. You've done the One Ghana movement. You do the Constitution lectures. You are causing a lot of controversy, trying to hope that change happens. You have... What drives you?
I love my country. I don't have any other country. My children are Ghanaians.
You want to...
My parents are naturalized Americans.
Okay.
Of all my father's 8 kids, I'm the only Ghanaian, only one who has practically remained properly Ghanaian.
You mean you could have gone to be American?
And my children too could have been Americans if I wanted them to.
And you decided to cancel?
Everybody's Ghanaian.
Is everything okay?
Sometimes I wonder whether I thought right or not, you know. But I come from not a very privileged background. Sometimes feels like a little privilege in the midst of a one-eyed man, in the midst of a blind man. I am a Saito man. I went to school at Pantan Hospital, JSS. I mean, I lived next to Nyamik Room, where what we do is Gary. You know, we farm, we walk to school and all that. I've seen the hustle. The biggest problem I have every day is people asking for jobs. And I see people wanting dignity to life. And I feel helpless. Those solutions can be triggered by the policy space. It's the reason why I'm actually in business. Trying to create opportunities to impact lives, simplify lives, and also transform. Give people an opportunity I got.
Why don't you run for office and make the change there?
I'm not cut out for politics. I'll be killed in a day or two. Or
you won't survive. You won't play.
I mean, when I'm elected president, I think the first thing you guys should be doing, we should be doing as a country, is start preparing for the state funeral.
Because they will shoot.
Oh, I'll be killed. It won't last. It won't last.
The madman, anchorite, former CEO of CBOD, now CEO of Cleve and Tove. Senyo Hosi was my guest on Face to Face. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Senyo, for being our guest.
Pleasure, mine.